Tycoon abandoned pregnant wife. 3 years later, stumbles upon twin at benefit event. Mr. Reeves, your 8 a.m. is here. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Send them in, Alexander replied, his voice devoid of emotion. He turned from the window, steeling himself for another day of deals and acquisitions. As the door opened, revealing a group of nervous-looking executives, Alexander felt a familiar surge of power. This was his arena, where he thrived, where he felt most alive. Yet, as he gestured for them to take their seats, a fleeting thought crossed his mind, a whisper of emptiness that he quickly suppressed. Gentlemen, he began, his voice commanding attention, let's not waste time. You're here because your company is failing, and I'm here to decide if it's worth saving. The men shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Alexander paid no heed to their discomfort. His eyes scanned the room, cold and calculating, as he continued. I've reviewed your financials. Frankly, they're abysmal, but I see potential that you've failed to capitalize on. One of the executives, an older man with graying temples, cleared his throat. Mr. Reeves, if you'd just give us a chance to explain our strategy. Alexander cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. Your strategy is what got you into this mess. From now on, you'll do things my way. If you want to keep your jobs, that is. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Alexander felt a familiar rush of adrenaline, the thrill of holding others' fates in his hands. This was what he lived for, what he had sacrificed everything for. As he launched into his plan to overhaul their company, a part of him wondered if there was more to life than this endless pursuit of power and wealth. But he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. There was no room for doubt or sentimentality in his world. Success was all that mattered, and he would stop at nothing to achieve it. Little did Alexander know that across the city, in a modest apartment, a woman named Sophia was about to change his life forever, a change that would force him to confront the very questions he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. Alexander, she whispered, her voice barely audible. How am I going to tell you? Sophia's reflection stared back at her. A mix of joy and fear etched across her face. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach, feeling a surge of love for the life growing within her. But that love was tinged with anxiety as she thought about her husband's reaction. Taking a deep breath, Sophia walked into their spacious living room, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. She picked up a framed photo of her and Alexander on their wedding day, tracing his smile with her finger. We were so happy then, she murmured. When did everything change? The sound of keys in the door made her heart race. She quickly put down the photo and smoothed her dress, trying to calm her nerves. Alexander strode in, his attention focused on his phone. Sophia, I can't stay long. I have a dinner meeting with Alexander. Sophia interrupted, her voice stronger than she felt. We need to talk. It's important. He looked up, annoyance flashing across his face. Can't it wait? I'm already late. Sophia felt a flicker of anger. No, it can't wait. It's about our future. Alexander sighed, reluctantly putting down his phone. Fine. What is it? Sophia took a deep breath, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Sophia watched Alexander's face, hoping to see joy, excitement, anything positive. Instead, she saw something that made her blood run cold, fear. Pregnant, Alexander repeated, his voice flat. Are you sure? Sophia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I took 3 tests. We're going to be parents, Alexander. She reached out to him, seeking comfort, connection, but Alexander took a step back, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I don't know what to say, he stammered. This isn't part of the plan. My career is just taking off. I can't. Sophia felt her world crumbling around her. What are you saying? This is our child, Alexander. Our family. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, his breathing rapid. I need time to think. This is too much, too soon. As he turned away, reaching for the door, Sophia felt a surge of desperation. "Alexander, please. We can figure this out together. Don't walk away from us." But Alexander was already opening the door, his voice distant as he spoke. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I just can't do this right now." The door closed behind him, leaving Sophia alone in the silence of their apartment. She sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face, one hand protectively cradling her stomach. "It's okay, little one," she whispered through her tears. "No matter what happens, I'll always love you." As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the room, Sophia remained on the floor, her mind racing with fears and uncertainties about the future. Little did she know that this moment would set in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. Grabbing her coat, Sophia stepped out into the cool night air. The city buzzed around her, oblivious to her inner turmoil. She walked aimlessly, her mind racing, until she found herself in front of a small park. Taking a seat on a bench, she stared up at the stars, barely visible through the city's light pollution. "What am I going to do?" she whispered to the night. As if in answer, her phone buzzed. Her heart leapt, hoping it was Alexander, but it was just a work email. Sophia sighed, realizing she'd have to face her reality sooner rather than later. Hours passed, and Sophia finally made her way back home, steeling herself for what she might find. The apartment was dark and quiet. Alexander's coat was missing from its usual hook. "Alexander?" she called out, her voice echoing in the emptiness. No response. Sophia's heart sank as she made her way to their bedroom. On the nightstand, she noticed a folded piece of paper. With trembling hands, she picked it up and began to read. "Sophia, I can't do this. I'm not ready for a family, for the responsibility. My career is everything to me right now. I thought you understood that. I'm sorry, but I need to leave. I've transferred a substantial amount to your account. It should be more than enough to take care of everything. Don't try to contact me. It's better this way." Alexander. Sophia read the note once, twice, 3 times, each time feeling like a knife twisting in her heart. The coldness of his words, the casual way he dismissed their life together, their unborn child, it was almost too much to bear. "How could you?" she screamed, crumpling the paper in her fist. "How could you do this to us?" Her anguish turned to anger, then back to sorrow. She collapsed onto the bed, clutching her stomach protectively. "It's just you and me now, little one," she whispered through her tears. "But I promise, I will love you enough for both of us. We'll make it through this, somehow." As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Sophia made a decision. She wouldn't let Alexander's abandonment define her or her child's future. She would face this challenge head-on, with all the strength and courage she could muster. Picking up her phone, she dialed a number with shaking fingers. "Mom?" Her voice cracked as her mother answered. "I need you. Can you come over?" As she waited for her mother to arrive, Sophia stood by the window, watching the city come to life. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling a newfound determination coursing through her veins. "We're going to be okay," she promised her unborn child. "We don't need him. We'll build our own happiness, our own family. And one day, he'll regret ever walking away from us." Little did Sophia know that her words would prove prophetic, setting the stage for a future confrontation that would shake the foundations of the life she was about to build. "Oh, sweetheart," her mother soothed, stroking Sophia's hair. "What's happened?" Through sobs and hiccups, Sophia recounted the events of the past day. Her mother's face grew increasingly concerned, then angry as she heard about Alexander's abandonment. "That coward," her mother hissed. "How dare he?" Sophia pulled away, wiping her tears. "Mom, I'm pregnant, and now I'm alone." Her mother's eyes widened, a mix of shock and joy crossing her face. "Oh, Sophia, you're not alone. You have me, your father, your sisters. We're all here for you." As they sat on the couch, Sophia's mother held her hand tightly. "What do you want to do, sweetheart?" Sophia took a deep breath, her hand resting on her stomach. "I want to keep the baby. I know it won't be easy, but I already love this child so much." Her mother nodded, a proud smile on her face. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll face this together." As the day progressed, Sophia's family rallied around her. Her sisters arrived, bringing food and comfort. Her father, usually stoic, shed tears as he hugged her, promising to support her every step of the way. In the midst of this familial warmth, Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. "I've instructed my lawyer to draw up divorce papers. You'll receive them soon. Please don't make this difficult." Sophia stared at the message, a cold fury building inside her. She stood up abruptly, startling her family. "Sophia?" her sister asked, concerned. With shaking hands, Sophia typed out a reply. "You want a divorce? Fine. But know this, Alexander, one day you'll regret this decision. And when that day comes, don't expect forgiveness." She hit send, then turned to her family, a new fire in her eyes. "I don't need his money," she declared. "I don't need anything from him. I'm going to build a life for myself and my child, and we're going to be happier than he could ever imagine." Her family exchanged worried glances, but Sophia's mother stood up, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. "And we'll be with you every step of the way," she affirmed. As the sun set on that tumultuous day, Sophia stood by the window once more. The city lights twinkled, a reminder of the vast world out there, full of possibilities and challenges. "You hear that, little one?" she whispered to her unborn child. "We're starting a new chapter. It might be scary, it might be hard, but we're going to face it together. And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back on this as the best thing that ever happened to us." Little did Sophia know how prophetic her words would prove to be. As she turned away from the window, ready to face her new reality, the wheels of fate were already in motion, setting the stage for a future encounter that would change everything once again. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Reeves?" her lawyer asked gently. "The settlement he's offering is substantial. It could secure your future and the child's." Sophia's jaw clenched, her eyes flashing with determination. "It's Ms. Cardoso now. And yes, I'm sure. I don't want his money. I don't want anything that ties us to him." With a swift motion, she signed the papers, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders even as a new one settled in her heart. As she left the office, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "How did it go? Do you need anything?" Sophia smiled, grateful for her family's unwavering support. She typed back, "It's done. I'm officially divorced. And you know what? I feel free." Walking down the busy street, Sophia's hand instinctively went to her slightly swollen belly. At 4 months pregnant, she was just starting to show. The realization hit her anew. She was going to be a single mother. The thought was terrifying, but also strangely exhilarating. She found herself in front of a small boutique, its window display showcasing adorable baby clothes. Without thinking, she walked in, drawn to a tiny pair of yellow booties. "First, baby?" the shopkeeper asked kindly, noticing Sophia's wistful expression. Sophia nodded, her eyes misting. "Yes, it's just going to be the two of us." The shopkeeper's smile was warm and understanding. "That's brave of you, dear. But you know what? Sometimes the smallest families are the strongest." Impulsively, Sophia bought the booties, tucking them into her purse like a talisman. As she left the shop, she felt a newfound resolve coursing through her veins. That evening, sitting in her new, smaller apartment, she'd moved out of the penthouse she'd shared with Alexander. Sophia cradled the tiny booties in her hands. She spoke softly to her unborn child. "Little one, I want you to know something. Your father, he made a choice. He chose not to be part of our lives. But that doesn't define us. We're going to create our own story, you and I, and it's going to be beautiful." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I've decided I'm not going to tell him about you. Not now, maybe not ever. It's not out of spite, but out of protection. For both of us, we'll build our life, our family, without him. And if one day, fate brings him back into our lives, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." As she placed the booties on her nightstand, Sophia felt a mix of sadness and fierce determination. She was rewriting her future one decision at a time. Little did she know that her choice to keep her pregnancy a secret from Alexander would set in motion a chain of events that would culminate in a shocking encounter years down the line. But for now, Sophia was focused on the present, on nurturing the precious life growing within her, and on building a world where her child would be surrounded by love, even in the absence of a father. "You're doing great, Sophia," her mother encouraged, wiping sweat from her brow. "Just a little more." Sophia gritted her teeth, pushing with all her might. I can't do this," she gasped between contractions. The doctor's voice cut through her haze of pain. "I can see the head. One more big push, Sophia." With a primal scream, Sophia gave one final, monumental push. Suddenly, the room filled with the piercing cry of a newborn. "It's a girl," the doctor announced joyfully. Sophia collapsed back onto the bed, tears of exhaustion and joy streaming down her face. But before she could fully process the moment, the doctor's voice rang out again, urgent and surprised. "Wait, there's another one." Sophia's eyes flew open in shock. "What?" Her mother gripped her hand tighter. "Twins, Sophia. You're having twins." The next few minutes were a blur of pain, pushing, and overwhelming emotion. Finally, a second cry joined the first. "And a boy!" the doctor exclaimed. "Congratulations, Sophia. You have beautiful, healthy twins." As the nurses cleaned and wrapped the babies, Sophia lay in stunned silence. Twins. She had been preparing for one baby, and now she had two. The enormity of the situation hit her like a tidal wave. When the nurses placed the tiny bundles in her arms, Sophia felt her heart expand in ways she never thought possible. She looked down at their scrunched-up faces, marveling at their perfection. "Hello, my loves," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm your mommy, and I promise I will love you enough for two parents." Her mother leaned in, tears in her eyes. "What are you going to name them?" Sophia gazed at her daughter, with wisps of dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. "Olivia," she said softly. Then, turning to her son, whose tiny hand had wrapped around her finger with surprising strength, she added, "And Oliver." As she cradled her unexpected miracles, Sophia felt a mix of overwhelming love and heart-wrenching sadness. These precious beings would never know their father, at least not if she had any say in it. But looking into their innocent faces, she made a silent vow. "I may not be able to give you everything," she murmured, "but I promise you'll never doubt how loved you are. We're a team now, the three of us, and together we can face anything." Little did Sophia know that her words would be put to the test sooner than she could have ever imagined. As she basked in the glow of new motherhood, across the city, Alexander was sealing deals and climbing corporate ladders, blissfully unaware that his life had just changed irrevocably. The stage was set for a future collision that would shake the foundations of both their worlds. For now, though, in the quiet of the hospital room, Sophia reveled in the miracle of her children, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the fierce love of a mother who would move mountains for her babies. "Mr. Reeves," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The board is ready for you in the conference room." "I'll be right there," he replied, his voice carrying a weariness that surprised even him. As he turned from the window, his eyes fell on a small, framed photo on his desk. It was the only personal item in the otherwise sterile office, a picture of him and Sophia on their wedding day. He hadn't been able to bring himself to remove it, even after all this time. For a moment, Alexander allowed himself to wonder what had become of her. Had she remarried? Started a family with someone else? The thought sent an unexpected pang through his chest. Shaking his head to clear the unwelcome thoughts, he straightened his tie and headed for the conference room. As he walked in, the board members rose, their faces a mix of admiration and fear. "Gentlemen," Alexander began, his voice commanding attention, "today marks a new era for our company. With the acquisition of TechFusion, we're not just expanding our portfolio, we're reshaping the entire industry." As he launched into his presentation, outlining ambitious plans and projected profits, a part of him felt hollow. The thrill of the deal, the rush of power, it all seemed somehow less satisfying than it used to be. Midway through his speech, Alexander faltered, a wave of unexpected emotion washing over him. The board members exchanged confused glances as he gripped the edge of the table, struggling to regain his composure. "Mr. Reeves, are you all right?" one of them ventured. Alexander forced a smile. Just a momentary lapse. Where were we? But as he continued, his mind wandered. What was this emptiness he felt? He had everything he'd ever wanted: wealth, power, respect. So why did it all suddenly feel so meaningless? As the meeting concluded and the board members filed out, showering him with congratulations, Alexander remained seated, lost in thought. His assistant poked her head in. "Sir, is everything okay?" Alexander looked up, his eyes distant. "Tell me, Sarah, do you have children?" Surprised by the personal question, Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. 2 boys. And, are you happy?" Sarah's face softened. "They're the light of my life, sir. Nothing compares to the joy they bring me." Alexander nodded slowly, a lump forming in his throat. "Thank you, Sarah. That'll be all." As he sat alone in the conference room, the weight of his choices over the past 3 years began to press down on him. He had achieved everything he thought he wanted, but at what cost? For the first time in years, Alexander allowed himself to truly think about Sophia, about the life they could have had together, the child they could have raised, the family he had walked away from. "What have I done?" he whispered to the empty room, his voice cracking with regret. Little did Alexander know that across the city, Sophia was thriving in her new life, raising 2 beautiful children, his children, that he knew nothing about. The paths he had so carefully separated were about to converge in ways he could never have imagined, setting the stage for a reunion that would shake the very foundations of the life he had built. "Mommy, look!" Olivia's excited voice rang out as she held up a crayon drawing. Sophia turned from her drafting table, a warm smile spreading across her face. "It's beautiful, sweetie. Is that our family?" Olivia nodded enthusiastically, her dark curls bouncing. "Yes, me, Oliver, you, and Grandma and Grandpa." Sophia's heart clenched slightly at the absence of a father figure in the drawing, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. "It's perfect, darling. Why don't you go show Oliver?" As Olivia scampered off, Sophia returned to her work, determination etched on her face. She was putting the finishing touches on designs for a high-profile client, an opportunity that could launch her career to new heights. "Ms. Cardoso?" Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The Johnsons are here for their consultation." Sophia took a deep breath, straightening her posture. "Send them in, please." As she greeted her clients, Sophia felt a familiar mix of confidence and anxiety. This was her chance to prove herself, to secure a future for her children that she had built with her own 2 hands. The meeting went smoothly, with the Johnsons clearly impressed by Sophia's innovative designs and attention to detail. As they were leaving, Mrs. Johnson paused. "Sophia, if you don't mind me asking, how do you do it all? Running your own business, raising twins? It's impressive." Sophia's smile faltered for a moment, memories of sleepless nights and moments of overwhelming doubt flashing through her mind. But she squared her shoulders, meeting Mrs. Johnson's gaze. "It's not easy," she admitted, "but my children are my inspiration. Everything I do for them." After the clients left, Sophia sank into her chair, exhaustion washing over her. She glanced at the clock, almost time to pick up the twins from preschool. As she gathered her things, her eyes fell on a small photo tucked into the corner of her desk. It was a picture of her and Alexander from happier times. She hadn't been able to bring herself to throw it away, despite everything. "Why do I still keep this?" she murmured, tracing Alexander's face with her finger. A knock at the door startled her. It was her mother, arriving to help with the twins. "Tough day, sweetheart?" her mother asked, noticing Sophia's weary expression. Sophia nodded, quickly tucking the photo away. Just the usual juggling act. But I think I landed a big client today. Her mother beamed with pride. That's wonderful. You've come so far, Sophia. You should be proud of yourself. As they left the office together, Sophia felt a mix of accomplishment and lingering sadness. She had built a good life for herself and her children, but there was still a small part of her that wondered what might have been. Do you ever think about him? Sophia asked suddenly, surprising herself. Her mother's face softened with understanding. Alexander? Sometimes. But what matters is the present, Sophia. You've created a beautiful life without him. Sophia nodded, squaring her shoulders as they approached the preschool. You're right. The past is the past. We're happy, and that's what counts. As they rounded the corner, the sounds of children playing filled the air. Sophia's heart lightened at the thought of seeing her twins. Yet, as she scanned the playground for Olivia and Oliver, a nagging feeling persisted in the back of her mind. Little did she know that across the city, Alexander was starting to question his own choices, setting in motion a chain of events that would soon bring their separate worlds crashing back together in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Olivia, with her dark curls bouncing, was at the center of a group of children, animatedly telling a story. Her hands waved expressively, her eyes bright with excitement. Even from a distance, Sophia could see the other children hanging on her every word. Oliver, on the other hand, sat quietly under a large oak tree, his attention focused on a picture book. His brow was furrowed in concentration, his small fingers tracing the words on the page. Sophia's heart swelled with love and pride. There they are, she said to her mother, pointing out the twins. As they approached, Olivia spotted them first. Mommy! Grandma! She shouted, abandoning her audience and running full tilt towards them. Oliver looked up at his sister's shout, a slow smile spreading across his face as he carefully closed his book and made his way over. Sophia knelt down, enveloping both children in a tight hug. How was your day, my loves? I made up a story about a princess who could talk to dragons. Olivia exclaimed, her eyes shining. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Sophia laughed, turning to Oliver. And what about you, my little bookworm? Oliver held up his book shyly. I read all by myself, Mommy, he said softly, a hint of pride in his voice. Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. The whole book? Oliver, that's amazing. As they walked home, Sophia listened to Olivia's animated chatter about her day, while Oliver quietly held her hand, occasionally adding a thoughtful comment. At home, as the twins settled in for their afternoon snack, Sophia's mother pulled her aside. They're growing up so fast, she mused, a hint of sadness in her voice. Sophia nodded, watching as Olivia dramatically reenacted part of her dragon story for Oliver, who listened with rapt attention. They are, Sophia agreed. Sometimes I look at them and I see. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. But her mother understood. You see Alexander, she finished gently. Sophia nodded, blinking back sudden tears. Olivia has his charm, his way with people. And Oliver, he has Alexander's focus, his quietness. Her mother squeezed her hand. They may have parts of him, Sophia, but they are uniquely themselves. And they are who they are because of you. Sophia took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. You're right. They're perfect just as they are. As she rejoined the twins, helping Oliver with a tricky word in his book and listening to Olivia's plans for her next story, Sophia felt a renewed sense of purpose. These children were her world, and she would do anything to protect them and give them the best life possible. Yet, as the afternoon wore on, a nagging thought persisted in the back of her mind. How long could she keep the truth from them? How long before they started asking about their father? Little did Sophia know that fate was already in motion, setting the stage for a chance encounter that would force her to confront these questions sooner than she ever expected. As the sun began to set outside their cozy apartment, casting a warm glow over the family scene, the future loomed, full of unexpected twists and turns that would test the bonds of love, forgiveness, and family in ways Sophia could never have imagined. Suddenly, one caught his eye. It was an invitation to a benefit for a foundation supporting single mothers. Alexander's hand trembled slightly as he read the details. "Sarah," he called to his assistant. "Who sent this invitation?" Sarah appeared in the doorway. "It came from our PR department, sir. They thought it would be good publicity for the company to support such a cause." Alexander nodded slowly, his mind racing. Yes, I suppose it would be." As Sarah left, Alexander stared at the invitation, lost in thought. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was somehow significant, that attending this event could be a turning point. Later that evening, as he nursed a glass of scotch in his penthouse, Alexander made a decision. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Sarah, I need you to RSVP to that benefit for single mothers. I'll be attending." There was a pause on the other end. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. May I ask, is everything all right?" Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not sure, Sarah. I think it's time I faced some things from my past." As he hung up, Alexander walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly wonder about Sophia. Was she out there somewhere, struggling as a single mother? The thought sent a wave of guilt crashing over him. "I made a terrible mistake," he whispered to his reflection in the glass. "But maybe it's not too late to make things right." Little did Alexander know that his decision to attend this benefit would set in motion a series of events that would change his life forever. As he stood there, contemplating the possibilities, across the city, Sophia was tucking her twins into bed, blissfully unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to be turned upside down. The stage was set for a reunion that neither of them could have anticipated, one that would force them to confront their past, their present, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. As the city hummed with nightlife below, fate was already weaving its intricate web, drawing Alexander and Sophia inexorably towards a moment that would shake the very foundations of their separate lives. "Sophia?" Her mother called from the living room. "Is everything all right?" Sophia took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "Yes, Mom. Can you come here for a moment?" As her mother entered the room, Sophia turned the screen towards her. "Look at this. It's an invitation to showcase my designs at the upcoming charity gala for single mothers support." Her mother's eyes widened. "Sophia, that's wonderful. This could be your big break." Sophia nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her voice. "I know. It's an amazing opportunity, but..." She trailed off, her gaze drifting to a photo of the twins on her desk. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "But you're worried about the kids?" Sophia nodded. "It's not just that. This gala, it's going to be full of high-profile people. What if he's there?" The unspoken name hung in the air between them. "Alexander." Her mother's face softened with understanding. "Sweetheart, you can't let that fear hold you back. This is your chance to shine, to show the world what you're capable of." Sophia stood up, pacing the small room. "You're right. I know you're right. But the thought of seeing him, after all this time..." She paused, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach, remembering the pain and fear she'd felt 3 years ago. What if he recognizes the twins? What if he tries to? Her mother cut her off gently. "Sophia, listen to me. You are strong. You've built a beautiful life for yourself and your children. Don't let the ghost of Alexander Reeves take this opportunity away from you." Sophia took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. She looked at the twins' photo again, seeing their smiling faces, so full of trust and love. In that moment, she made her decision. "You're right," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I'm going to do this. For them. For me." She turned back to her computer, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. With a surge of determination, she began to type her response. "Dear Mrs. Thornton, I am honored to accept your invitation to showcase my designs at the upcoming charity gala for single mother support. Thank you for this incredible opportunity." As she hit send, Sophia felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one full of promise and potential. But lurking beneath her excitement was a nagging fear. A fear that this decision might lead to a confrontation she'd been avoiding for years. Little did Sophia know that across the city, Alexander was making plans of his own. As both of them prepared for the gala, fate was weaving its intricate web, drawing them closer to a moment that would change everything. The stage was set for a reunion that neither of them could have anticipated, one that would force them to confront their past, their present, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. As the sun set over New York City, casting long shadows across Sophia's small apartment and Alexander's luxurious penthouse, the countdown to their inevitable encounter had begun. "We're here, Mr. Reeves," his driver announced as they pulled up to the glittering venue. Alexander took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Thank you, James. This might be a long night." As he stepped out onto the red carpet, camera flashes exploded around him. He plastered on his practiced smile, but his eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a face he wasn't even sure he'd recognize after all this time. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of elegance and opulence. Alexander made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, all while his mind raced. What if Sophia was here? What would he say to her after all these years? Across the room, Sophia stood by her design display, her hands trembling slightly as she explained her work to a group of interested patrons. She looked stunning in a sleek, midnight blue gown, her hair swept up elegantly. But her eyes, too, kept darting around the room, a mix of fear and anticipation in their depths. "Your designs are exquisite, Miss Cardoso," a woman in the group praised. "How do you balance your work with being a single mother?" Sophia smiled, a hint of pride in her voice. "It's not easy, but my children are my inspiration. Everything I create with them in mind." As the group moved on, Sophia took a moment to catch her breath. She reached for a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, her eyes once again scanning the crowd. And then it happened. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Time seemed to stand still as Alexander and Sophia stared at each other, a flood of emotions passing between them. Alexander felt his breath catch in his throat. Sophia was even more beautiful than he remembered, with a strength and grace that took his breath away. Without thinking, he began to move towards her, drawn like a magnet. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of anger, fear, and something else she couldn't quite name surging through her. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet seemed rooted to the spot. As Alexander drew closer, Sophia's mind raced. What would she say? How could she face the man who had abandoned her and their unborn children? Just as Alexander was about to reach her, a small voice cut through the tension. "Mommy!" Sophia turned, her eyes widening in shock as she saw Olivia pushing through the crowd, Oliver trailing behind her. Her mother followed, an apologetic look on her face. "I'm so sorry, Sophia," her mother said breathlessly. "They insisted on surprising you. I couldn't stop them." Alexander froze, his eyes locked on the children. Olivia, with her charming smile and outgoing nature. Oliver, quiet and observant, his eyes taking in everything around him. Both of them unmistakably a perfect blend of Sophia and himself. The realization hit him like a physical blow. These weren't just any children. These were his children, the ones he never knew existed. Sophia instinctively pulled the twins close, her eyes meeting Alexander's with a mix of defiance and fear. The moment of truth had arrived, far sooner and more dramatically than she could have ever imagined. As the gala continued around them, oblivious to the drama unfolding in their midst, Alexander, Sophia, and the twins stood frozen in a tableau of shock, recognition, and impending confrontation. The past and present collided in that moment, setting the stage for a revelation that would change all of their lives forever. Alexander was the first to break it, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sophia, are they?" Sophia's grip on the twins tightened, her voice steely despite her trembling hands. "Yes, Alexander, they're yours. The children you walked away from before they were even born." Olivia, ever the curious one, looked up at Alexander with wide eyes. "Mommy, who's this man?" Sophia's heart raced, her mind scrambling for an answer. But before she could speak, Oliver tugged at her dress, his quiet voice cutting through the tension. "He looks like the man in the picture you keep in your drawer, Mommy." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face as Alexander's eyes widened in surprise. She had never been able to bring herself to throw away that old photo of them together. Alexander took a tentative step forward, his eyes never leaving the children. I had no idea. Sophia, why didn't you tell me?" Sophia's eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and pain. "Tell you? You left me, Alexander. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us." The commotion had begun to draw attention. Sophia's mother stepped in, gently ushering the twins away. "Come, darlings. Let's go get some cake while Mommy talks to her friend." As the children were led away, Sophia and Alexander were left alone, years of unspoken words hanging between them. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, his composure crumbling. "I made a terrible mistake, Sophia. I've regretted it every day since. But if I had known..." "If you had known what?" Sophia cut in, her voice low and intense. "That I was carrying twins? Would that have changed anything? You made your choice, Alexander. You chose your career over your family." Alexander's face crumpled with remorse. "I was a fool, a coward. I spent the last 3 years trying to fill a void I couldn't understand. Now I know why. It was them. It was you." Sophia felt tears stinging her eyes, years of pent-up emotion threatening to overflow. "It's too late, Alexander. We've built a life without you. The twins have never known a father, and they've been just fine." But even as she spoke the words, Sophia felt a flicker of doubt. She thought of Olivia's questions about why she didn't have a daddy like her friends, of Oliver's quiet longing when he saw fathers playing with their children in the park. Alexander sensed her hesitation. "Please, Sophia. I know I don't deserve it, but give me a chance. Let me make things right. Let me be a part of their lives." Sophia looked into the eyes of the man she had once loved, the father of her children. She saw regret, hope, and a desperation that mirrored her own conflicted feelings. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she whispered, her defenses beginning to crack. Alexander reached out, hesitating before gently taking her hand. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to know our children, to be the father I should have been from the beginning." As they stood there, hands joined, the world around them slowly came back into focus. The gala continued, oblivious to the life-altering conversation taking place in its midst. Sophia took a deep breath, her mind racing with the implications of this moment. Could she open her heart, and the hearts of her children, to the man who had once shattered them? Was it worth the risk? As she looked over at Olivia and Oliver, happily eating cake with their grandmother, Sophia knew she had a monumental decision to make, one that would shape not just her future, but the future of her precious twins. The night that had begun as a celebration of her professional achievements had turned into a crossroads of her personal life. As Sophia turned back to Alexander, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil, she uttered words that would set in motion a new chapter in all their lives. "We have a lot to talk about, Alexander, and it won't be easy. But for the sake of our children, I'm willing to try." The weight of possibility hung in the air between them, as heavy as the years of separation that had led to this moment. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it held a glimmer of hope for a family once torn apart by fear and ambition. Alexander stood up as she neared, his face a mask of nervousness. "Sophia, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Sophia slid into her seat, her posture rigid. "I'm here for the children, Alexander. They deserve to know the truth, whatever that may be." As they ordered their coffees, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Alexander was the first to break it, his voice low and filled with regret. "I've thought about what to say to you for days, Sophia, but now that you're here, I don't know where to begin." Sophia's eyes met his, a storm of emotions swirling in their depths. "Why don't you start with why? Why did you leave us?" Alexander's hands clenched around his coffee cup, I was a coward, Sophia. When you told me about the pregnancy, I panicked. I saw my career, everything I'd worked for, slipping away. I convinced myself that I wasn't ready, that you'd be better off without me. Sophia's voice was sharp. And you thought leaving a note and a check was the solution? Alexander winced at her words. I know it was unforgivable. I've regretted it every day since. But I want to make it right, Sophia. I want to be part of their lives. Sophia leaned back, studying him. And what makes you think you deserve that chance? How do I know you won't walk away again when things get tough? Alexander leaned forward, his eyes pleading. Because I'm not the same man I was 3 years ago. Seeing you at the gala, seeing our children. It changed everything. I realize now what truly matters in life, and it's not stock prices or business deals. It's family. Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes. She wanted to believe him, but years of hurt and mistrust weren't easily overcome. It's not just about you and me anymore, Alexander. Olivia and Oliver have never known a father. Introducing you into their lives, it would change everything. Alexander nodded solemnly. I know, and I'm prepared to take it as slowly as you think is best. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust and theirs. As they continued to talk, Sophia found herself studying Alexander's face. She saw lines of worry and regret that hadn't been there 3 years ago, but also a softness in his eyes when he spoke of the twins. Tell me about them, Alexander said softly. What are they like? For the first time since they sat down, Sophia's face softened into a smile. Olivia is a little firecracker. She's outgoing, always the center of attention. And Oliver, he's quieter, more thoughtful. He loves books and puzzles. Alexander listened intently, drinking in every detail. As Sophia spoke, she saw a mix of joy and sadness in his eyes, joy at learning about his children, and sadness for all the moments he'd missed. As their meeting drew to a close, Sophia found herself at a crossroads. Part of her wanted to protect her heart and her children from potential hurt, but another part saw the genuine remorse and longing in Alexander's eyes. I can't promise anything, Sophia said finally, but I'm willing to consider introducing you to the twins, slowly and on my terms. Alexander's face lit up with hope. Thank you, Sophia. That's more than I deserve. I promise I won't let you down. Not again. As they stood to leave, an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was just the beginning of a long and complicated journey. There would be challenges ahead, trust to rebuild, and wounds to heal. But as they parted ways outside the cafe, both Sophia and Alexander felt a glimmer of hope. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it held the possibility of healing and reconciliation. As Sophia walked home, her mind raced with thoughts of how to explain this to Olivia and Oliver. She knew that the coming days and weeks would be filled with difficult conversations and emotional moments. But as she thought of her children's faces, she couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a new chapter for all of them. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and climbed the stairs to her floor. As she entered her apartment, the sound of laughter greeted her. Olivia and Oliver were playing in the living room under the watchful eye of her mother. "Mommy's home," Olivia exclaimed, running to hug Sophia's legs. Oliver looked up from his book, a small smile playing on his lips. "Hi, Mommy. Did you have a good meeting?" Sophia's heart clenched at their innocent faces. How could she possibly explain the complexity of the situation to them? "Sophia?" Her mother's voice was laced with concern. "How did it go?" Sophia sank onto the couch, pulling both children close to her. "It was intense. There's a lot we need to talk about." Her mother nodded, understanding the unspoken request for privacy. "Come on, little ones. Let's go make some cookies while Mommy rests for a bit." As the children scampered off to the kitchen, Sophia's mother squeezed her shoulder supportively. "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." Left alone in the living room, Sophia's eyes fell on the family photos adorning the walls. Pictures of the twins' birthdays, their first steps, their first day of preschool, all moments Alexander had missed. She pulled out her phone, staring at the new contact entry, Alexander Reeves. Her finger hovered over the call button, her mind racing with potential scenarios. What if she let him into their lives and he disappointed them again? What if the twins grew to love him and he left once more? Could she bear to see her children go through the pain she had experienced? But then again, what if this was their chance at having a complete family? What if Alexander had truly changed, and denying the twins a relationship with their father would be a mistake? With trembling fingers, Sophia typed out a message. Alexander, I've been thinking about our conversation. The twins have been asking questions about their father lately. I think it might be time to introduce you, but we need to do this carefully. Can we meet again to discuss how to approach this? Her thumb hovered over the send button for what felt like an eternity. This single message had the power to change all of their lives irrevocably. Just then, Olivia's voice rang out from the kitchen. Mommy, come see the cookies we made. Sophia smiled despite her inner turmoil. No matter what happened with Alexander, these two precious children were her world. She had to do what was best for them, regardless of her own fears and doubts. With a deep breath, she pressed send. Almost immediately, her phone buzzed with a reply. Thank you, Sophia. This means more to me than you can imagine. I'm ready to do this on your terms, whatever it takes. Just name the time and place. As she read Alexander's response, Sophia felt a mix of relief and apprehension wash over her. There was no turning back now. They were about to embark on a journey that would reshape their family dynamic in ways she couldn't fully anticipate. Standing up, Sophia made her way to the kitchen, the smell of freshly baked cookies filling the air. As she watched Olivia and Oliver proudly display their creations, she silently vowed to protect their hearts, no matter what the future held. Those look delicious, she said, forcing a smile. And you know what? Mommy has something important to talk to you about after we enjoy these cookies. The twins looked at her curiously, sensing the weight in her words. Sophia's heart raced as she realized that in just a few moments, she would begin the process of introducing the concept of their father into their lives. As she sat down at the kitchen table, surrounded by the warmth of her children and the comforting presence of her mother, Sophia steeled herself for the conversation ahead. Whatever happened next, she knew that their lives were about to change forever. Sweethearts, Sophia began, her voice trembling slightly. Do you remember the man we met at the gala? The one who was talking to Mommy? Olivia nodded eagerly. The tall man in the fancy suit? He looked at us funny. Oliver, ever observant, added quietly. He had sad eyes, Mommy. Sophia felt a lump form in her throat. Even at their young age, they had picked up on so much. Yes, that's right. Well, there's something very important I need to tell you about him. She paused, searching for the right words. How do you explain to 3-year-olds that their father, who they've never known, wants to be part of their lives? You know how some of your friends have both a mommy and a daddy? Sophia continued gently. Olivia's eyes widened. Is he our daddy, Mommy? Is that why he looked at us like that? Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes, amazed at her daughter's intuition. Yes, sweetheart. He's your father. Oliver's brow furrowed in confusion. But why haven't we met him before? Doesn't he like us? Sophia's heart broke at the question. She pulled both children onto her lap, hugging them close. Oh, my loves, it's not that at all. Your father, he made a mistake a long time ago. He was scared and didn't know how to be a daddy. But now he wants to try. He wants to meet you and be part of our family. Olivia's face lit up with excitement. Really? We're gonna have a daddy like Tommy and Sarah? Oliver, however, remained quiet, his small hand gripping Sophia's tightly. Sophia kissed the top of Oliver's head. What are you thinking, sweetie? Oliver looked up at her, his eyes full of uncertainty. Will he go away again, Mommy? Will he make you sad? Sophia felt a surge of protectiveness. I don't know what will happen, my love, but I promise you, no matter what, I will always be here for you both. And if we decide to let your father into our lives, we'll do it slowly. Okay? We'll take small steps, and if at any time you feel uncomfortable or scared, you tell me. Deal? Both children nodded solemnly. Can we meet him soon, Mommy? Olivia asked, bouncing with excitement. Sophia smiled softly. We'll see, sweetheart. I need to talk to him first and make sure everything is okay. But how about this? Why don't you both draw a picture of what you think your daddy might like? We can give it to him when we meet. As the twins scampered off to get their crayons, Sophia's mother approached, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You handled that beautifully, she said softly. Sophia leaned into her mother's embrace. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Mom. What if this all goes wrong? Her mother squeezed her gently. You're giving your children a chance to know their father, and Alexander a chance to make things right. That's all you can do. The rest is up to them. As Sophia watched Olivia and Oliver bent over their drawings, their little faces scrunched in concentration, she felt a mix of hope and trepidation. This was the beginning of a new chapter for all of them, filled with unknowns and possibilities. She pulled out her phone and typed a message to Alexander. The children know. They want to meet you. Are you ready for this? As she hit send, Sophia realized that no matter what happened next, their lives would never be the same. The journey ahead would be challenging, emotional, and unpredictable. But looking at her children's excited faces, she knew it was a journey they needed to take. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it held the promise of healing, forgiveness, and maybe, just maybe, the chance for their fractured family to become whole. The morning of the meeting, Sophia found herself standing in front of her wardrobe, hands trembling as she tried to decide what to wear. It was a trivial concern, but it helped distract her from the enormity of what was about to happen. Mommy, are we going to see Daddy today? Olivia's excited voice called from the living room. Sophia took a deep breath, steadying herself. Yes, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about? We're going to take things slow. Okay? As they made their way to the park, Oliver clutched Sophia's hand tightly, his usual quiet demeanor even more pronounced. Sophia squeezed his hand reassuringly. It's okay to be nervous, my love. Mommy's a little nervous too. They arrived at the park early, finding a bench near the playground. Sophia's eyes scanned the area, her heart racing every time she saw a tall man approach. And then suddenly there he was. Alexander walked towards them, his confident stride belying the anxiety evident on his face. He was carrying a small gift bag, and Sophia could see his knuckles were white from gripping it so tightly. As he neared, Olivia, ever the brave one, jumped up. Are you our daddy? Alexander stopped, clearly taken aback by the directness of the question. He knelt down to Olivia's level, his voice soft and filled with emotion. Yes, I am. And you must be Olivia. It's so wonderful to meet you properly. Oliver, still holding Sophia's hand, regarded Alexander with wide, cautious eyes. Alexander turned to him, smiling gently. And you must be Oliver. I've been looking forward to meeting you both so much. Sophia watched the interaction with a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. Seeing Alexander with the twins, their shared features now glaringly obvious, was overwhelming. I brought you both something, Alexander said, reaching into the gift bag. He pulled out 2 small stuffed dragons, one blue, one pink. I heard you like dragons, Olivia. And Oliver, I thought you might like one too. Olivia's face lit up as she grabbed the pink dragon, hugging it tightly. Thank you, Daddy. The words slipped out naturally, causing both Sophia and Alexander to exchange a startled glance. Oliver accepted the blue dragon with a shy thank you, his grip on Sophia's hand loosening slightly. As the children began to play with their new toys, Alexander stood up, meeting Sophia's eyes. Thank you for this, he said softly. I know it can't be easy for you. Sophia nodded, her voice equally low. It's not about me. It's about them. They deserve to know you, Alexander. But remember, we're taking this slowly. As they sat on the bench, watching Olivia and Oliver play, an awkward silence fell between them. There was so much to say, so many years to account for, but neither knew where to begin. Finally, Oliver approached, his blue dragon tucked under his arm. He looked up at Alexander, his eyes serious. Are you going to leave again? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of past hurt and future uncertainty. Alexander's face crumpled with guilt and regret. He knelt down, looking Oliver in the eye. "No, Oliver. I'm not going to leave again. I know I made a big mistake before, but I promise you, I'm here to stay. If you and your sister will let me, I want to be part of your lives." Sophia watched the exchange, her heart aching. She saw the longing in Alexander's eyes, the cautious hope in Oliver's, and Olivia's excited bouncing nearby. This was just the beginning of a long, complicated journey. As the morning wore on, the tension slowly eased. Olivia regaled Alexander with stories of her adventures in preschool, while Oliver gradually opened up, showing him his favorite book that he'd brought along. When it was time to leave, Sophia felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This had gone better than she dared hope, but she knew there would be challenges ahead. "Can we see Daddy again soon?" Olivia asked as they walked home. Sophia glanced back at Alexander, who was watching them leave with a look of longing on his face. "We'll see, sweetheart. One step at a time, remember?" As they turned the corner, Sophia's phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. "Thank you, Sophia. They're incredible. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I'm committed to being the father they deserve. When can we meet again?" Sophia stared at the message, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. This was just the first step on a long, uncertain path. But looking at Olivia and Oliver, chattering excitedly about their new toys and the prospect of seeing their father again, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could build something beautiful from the ashes of the past. Only time would tell. One crisp Saturday morning, as Olivia and Oliver played on the swings with Alexander pushing them, Sophia's phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "How are things going? Are you okay?" Sophia typed back, her eyes never leaving the scene before her. "It's complicated. The kids are happy, but I'm still not sure." As she hit send, Alexander approached, a hesitant smile on his face. "They're getting tired. I thought maybe we could all grab some hot chocolate." Sophia hesitated, her instinct to protect warring with the desire to see her children happy. "I don't know, Alexander. We agreed to take things slow." Alexander nodded, his eyes betraying a hint of disappointment. "Of course, I understand. It's just, I was hoping we could talk about the future, about how we're going to make this work." Before Sophia could respond, Olivia came running up, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mommy, can we get hot chocolate with Daddy? Please." Oliver, not far behind, added softly, "I'm a little cold, Mommy." Sophia looked at their hopeful faces, then back at Alexander. She took a deep breath, making a decision that she hoped wouldn't come back to haunt her. "All right, but just for a little while." The small cafe was warm and cozy, a welcome respite from the chilly air outside. As the twins sipped their hot chocolate, getting whipped cream on their noses, Sophia found herself alone with Alexander for the first time in weeks. "Sophia," Alexander began, his voice low and serious, "I know this isn't easy for you, but I want you to know how grateful I am for this chance. Seeing them, being with them, it's changed everything for me." Sophia studied his face, searching for any sign of insincerity. "And what happens when it gets hard, Alexander? When it's not just fun outings and hot chocolate? Are you prepared for the real work of being a parent?" Alexander's eyes met hers, filled with determination. "I am. I know I have a lot to learn, but I'm committed to this. To them. To us, if you'll let me." Sophia felt her heart skip a beat at his words. "Us? Alexander, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened." "I know," he said softly. "But Sophia, seeing you with them, watching how amazing you are as a mother, I've fallen in love with you all over again. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one. Not just as their father, but as your partner." Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes, a storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Before she could respond, Oliver tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, can Daddy come to our birthday party next week?" Sophia froze, realizing she had forgotten to mention the twins' upcoming 4th birthday to Alexander. She saw the hurt flash across his face before he quickly masked it. "You're having a birthday party?" Alexander asked, his voice carefully neutral. Olivia chimed in excitedly. Yes, we're going to have a dragon cake and everything. Sophia felt caught between her children's enthusiasm and the pain in Alexander's eyes. She took a deep breath, making a decision that she knew would change everything. Would you like to come, Alexander? It's next Saturday at our apartment. The look of joy and gratitude that spread across Alexander's face made Sophia's heart clench. She was opening a door that she wasn't sure she was ready for, but looking at her children's happy faces, she knew she had to try. As they left the cafe, the twins chattering excitedly about their upcoming party and the prospect of their father being there, Sophia felt a mix of hope and trepidation. She was stepping into uncharted territory, inviting Alexander into their home, into the life they had built without him. That night, as she tucked the twins into bed, Olivia asked sleepily, "Mommy, is Daddy going to live with us now?" Sophia stroked her daughter's hair, her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. "I don't know, sweetheart. We're still figuring things out." As she closed the bedroom door, Sophia leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. She was standing on the precipice of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with potential for both joy and heartbreak. The birthday party loomed ahead, a milestone that would either bring them closer together or expose the fragility of their newfound connection. With trembling hands, Sophia picked up her phone and typed a message to Alexander. "The party starts at 2. Don't be late." As she hit send, Sophia realized that this birthday wasn't just a celebration for the twins. It was a test, a chance for Alexander to prove his commitment, and for her to see if she could truly open her heart again. The next week would be a turning point for all of them, and as Sophia crawled into bed that night, she found herself both dreading and anticipating what the future might hold. The doorbell rang at 1:55 p.m., and Sophia's heart leapt into her throat. She opened the door to find Alexander standing there, looking nervous but determined. He was holding 2 large, beautifully wrapped gifts. "I hope I'm not too early," he said, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. Sophia managed a small smile. "No, you're right on time. Come in." As Alexander stepped into the apartment, his eyes widened, taking in the dragon-themed decorations and the photos of the twins that adorned the walls. Sophia saw a flicker of pain cross his face as he realized how much he had missed. Before either of them could say anything more, Olivia and Oliver came racing into the room. "Daddy!" Olivia squealed, throwing herself into Alexander's arms. Oliver followed more slowly, but his face lit up when he saw the gifts. "Happy birthday, my little dragons," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe you're 4 already." As the twins eagerly unwrapped their presents, a set of building blocks for Oliver and a dress-up princess kit for Olivia, Sophia watched Alexander's face. She saw genuine joy there, but also a deep sadness for all the birthdays he had missed. The party progressed, filled with the laughter of children and the chatter of parents. Sophia's family and friends watched Alexander with a mix of curiosity and wariness, but he seemed determined to make a good impression. As Sophia brought out the dragon-shaped cake, complete with 4 candles for each twin, she found herself standing next to Alexander. For a moment, as they watched Olivia and Oliver blow out their candles together, Sophia could almost imagine that they were a normal, happy family. But reality came crashing back as one of the other mothers approached Sophia, whispering, "Is that their father? I thought you said he wasn't in the picture." Sophia felt her cheeks flush. "It's complicated," she murmured, moving away to cut the cake. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Sophia found herself alone in the kitchen with Alexander. He was helping to clean up, his sleeves rolled up as he washed dishes. "Thank you for inviting me, Sophia," he said softly. "This meant more to me than you can know." Sophia nodded, unsure of what to say. The day had been a roller coaster of emotions, and she felt drained. "I've been thinking," Alexander continued, his voice hesitant. "I know we're taking things slow, but I was wondering if maybe I could start coming over for dinner once a week, to spend more time with the kids, and with you." Sophia felt her heart rate quicken. This was the moment she had been both anticipating and dreading. Could she really let Alexander back into their lives so completely? As she opened her mouth to respond, a crash from the living room made them both jump. They rushed out to find Oliver standing amidst the broken remains of his new building block set, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Mommy," he sobbed. "I didn't mean to break it." Without hesitation, both Sophia and Alexander moved to comfort him. As they knelt on either side of Oliver, their hands brushed as they reached to pick up the scattered blocks. Sophia felt a jolt of electricity at the contact, her eyes meeting Alexander's over their son's head. In that moment, something shifted. Sophia saw not just the man who had abandoned her, but the father her children were growing to love. She saw the effort he was making, the genuine care in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, Sophia made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. "Dinner once a week sounds good," she said softly. "We can start next Tuesday." Alexander's face lit up with hope and gratitude. "Thank you, Sophia. I promise I won't let you down. Not this time." As they continued to pick up the blocks together, comforting Oliver and calling Olivia over to help, Sophia felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't going to be easy, and there were still many hurdles to overcome. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where they could be a family, different from what she had originally envisioned, but perhaps just as beautiful. The birthday party had been more than a celebration. It had been a turning point. As Sophia looked around at her children and Alexander, she realized that they were embarking on a new chapter together. The road ahead was uncertain, but as she watched Alexander gently explaining to Oliver how to rebuild his block tower, she felt a warmth in her heart that had been absent for too long. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in years, Sophia felt ready to face it not alone, but with the family she never expected to have. On one particularly crisp autumn evening, Sophia found herself in the kitchen, preparing dinner while Alexander helped the twins with their preschool art project in the living room. The sound of laughter drifted through the apartment, causing Sophia's heart to clench with a bittersweet ache. As she stirred the pasta sauce, lost in thought, Alexander's voice startled her. "Need any help?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Sophia turned, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think I've got it under control. How's the art project coming along?" Alexander chuckled, running a hand through his hair. "Well, I'm pretty sure I have more glitter on me than the actual project does." Their eyes met, and for a moment the years seemed to melt away. Sophia felt a familiar flutter in her stomach, one she thought she'd buried long ago. Clearing her throat, she turned back to the stove. "Dinner's almost ready. Could you set the table?" As they moved around the kitchen, their movements fell into an easy synchronicity that surprised them both. Felt right in a way that Sophia wasn't quite ready to acknowledge. During dinner, Olivia regaled them with tales from preschool, while Oliver quietly showed Alexander his latest drawing. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that Sophia felt a lump form in her throat. After the twins were tucked into bed, Sophia and Alexander found themselves alone in the living room, the remnants of the evening scattered around them. "Sophia," Alexander began, his voice soft but serious, "I know we've been taking things slow, and I appreciate that more than you know. But I need to ask, where do you see this going?" Sophia felt her heart rate quicken. She'd been avoiding this conversation, afraid of the emotions it might unleash. I don't know, Alexander," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Part of me is still so angry at you for leaving, but seeing you with the kids, seeing how much you've changed, it's confusing." Alexander moved closer, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and regret. "I know I can never fully make up for what I did, but Sophia, these past few weeks have shown me what I missed out on, what I threw away. I want to be here, fully, for all of you." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I'm still in love with you, Sophia. I never stopped. And I hope, that maybe you might feel something too." Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes. The walls she'd built around her heart were crumbling, and it terrified her. But before she could finish, A cry from the twins' room cut through the tension. They both jumped up, rushing to check on the children. They found Olivia in the throes of a nightmare, tears streaming down her face. As Sophia gathered her daughter in her arms, she felt Alexander's presence beside her, his hand gently stroking Olivia's hair. "Shoo, it's okay, princess," he murmured. "Mommy and Daddy are here." Sophia's eyes met Alexander's over Olivia's head, and in that moment, she saw their past, present, and potential future collide. The love she felt for her children, the lingering feelings for Alexander, and the fear of being hurt again all swirled together in a maelstrom of emotion. As Olivia's sobs subsided and she drifted back to sleep, Sophia and Alexander quietly left the room. In the hallway, they stood facing each other, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "I should go," Alexander said softly, though his eyes betrayed his reluctance. Sophia nodded, her mind racing. She knew she was standing on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. Could she trust Alexander again? Could she open her heart to the possibility of being a family? As Alexander reached for the door, Sophia found herself speaking, her voice trembling but determined. "Wait," she said. I think we need to talk. Really talk. About us, about the future. About what this means for the kids." Alexander turned, hope blooming in his eyes. "I'd like that," he said softly. As they moved back to the living room, Sophia felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. She was about to embark on a conversation that could reshape their lives once again. The future was uncertain, filled with potential for both joy and heartbreak. But as she looked at Alexander, seeing the man he'd become and remembering the man she'd fallen in love with, Sophia realized that some risks were worth taking. Whatever happened next, she knew that this night would be a turning point in their story. The clock ticked softly in the background as they sat down, facing each other. The air was thick with anticipation, fear, and a glimmer of hope. As Sophia took a deep breath, preparing to lay her heart bare, she knew that the words they exchanged in the next few hours would set the course for their future. As individuals, as parents, and perhaps as a family reunited. "I need you to understand something," Sophia began, her voice trembling slightly. "When you left, it wasn't just me you walked away from. I was carrying our children, Alexander. I went through the pregnancy alone, the birth alone, countless sleepless nights and first steps and words, all alone." Alexander's face contorted with pain. "I know, Sophia, and I'll regret those choices for the rest of my life. But I'm here now and Let me finish," Sophia interrupted, taking a deep breath. "The thing is, Alexander, I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm stronger now. I've built a life for myself and our children. And as much as I see you trying, as much as I want to believe you've changed, I'm terrified." Alexander moved closer, his eyes filled with determination. "Ask me anything, Sophia. I'll tell you everything. Why I left, what I've learned, what I want for our future." Sophia met his gaze. "Why did you really leave?" "The truth, Alexander. All of it." Alexander ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. "I was a coward," he admitted, his voice raw. "When you told me about the pregnancy, all I could think about was my father and how he always said I'd never amount to anything. I was so close to proving him wrong, to becoming the success he said I couldn't be. The thought of being a father, it terrified me. I convinced myself I wasn't ready, that I'd fail just like he did." Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "But I was wrong, Sophia. So terribly wrong. Success means nothing without family. These past few months with the twins, with you, I've never felt more alive, more purposeful." Sophia felt her own tears falling. "And what happens if things get hard again? If your business faces challenges? How do I know you won't run away again?" Alexander reached for her hand. "And this time Sophia didn't pull away. Because I've learned what really matters. These past 3 years, I achieved everything I thought I wanted: money, power, success. But I was empty inside." Seeing Olivia's smile, hearing Oliver's quiet wisdom, "That's real success. That's what I want to live for." He squeezed her hand gently. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm asking you to let me prove, every day, that I'm not that man anymore. Let me be the father our children deserve. And maybe someday, the partner you deserve. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers. I still love you, she whispered, the admission catching them both by surprise. I never stopped. But love isn't always enough, Alexander. Then let it be a start, he pleaded. We can take it slow, set boundaries, whatever you need. But please, Sophia, don't shut the door on us completely. As they sat there, hands intertwined, the sound of small footsteps made them both look up. Oliver stood in the doorway, clutching his blue dragon stuffed animal. Daddy? He asked sleepily. Are you leaving? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alexander looked at Sophia, his eyes asking permission. She nodded slightly. No, buddy, Alexander answered softly. I'm not leaving. Not tonight, not ever again. Come here. Oliver padded over, climbing onto the couch between them. Soon, they heard Olivia's footsteps too, and she joined them, curling up in Alexander's lap. As Sophia looked at their little family, huddled together on the couch, she felt something shift in her heart. The walls she'd built weren't crumbling exactly, but perhaps they were transforming into bridges instead. Maybe, she said softly, meeting Alexander's hopeful gaze over their children's heads. We could try having dinner together more than once a week. Alexander's face lit up with joy and gratitude. I'd like that, he whispered. I'd like that very much. As they sat there, the four of them together, Sophia realized that sometimes love does get a second chance. It might not be perfect, and it might not be easy, but with trust, patience, and commitment, perhaps they could build something even stronger than before. The night deepened around them, but none of them moved. For the first time in 3 years, they felt like a family. Not the one they'd originally planned to be, but perhaps the one they were always meant to become. One snowy evening, as Sophia watched Alexander helping Oliver build a snowman in the courtyard below her apartment window, she felt a familiar warmth spread through her chest. Olivia stood beside her, pressing her small nose against the cold glass. Mommy, Olivia said thoughtfully, is Daddy going to live with us soon? Tommy at school says his daddy lives with him all the time. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Before she could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. It was Alexander carrying a snow-covered Oliver. Someone got a little too excited about snow angels, he chuckled, setting Oliver down. As the twins ran off to change into dry clothes, Alexander turned to Sophia, snowflakes melting in his dark hair. His cheeks were flushed from the cold, and his eyes held that intense look that still made her heart flutter. Sophia, he began, his voice serious. I've been thinking. That's dangerous, she teased, trying to lighten the moment. He smiled, taking her hand. I found an apartment in this building, 2 floors down. I want to be closer to the kids, to you. Sophia felt her breath catch. Alexander, I'm not pushing, he added quickly. I know we're still finding our way, but being across town, only seeing them a few times a week, it's not enough anymore. I want to be here for the little moments, the everyday things. Sophia studied his face, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. The kids would love having you closer, she admitted softly. And you? He asked, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Before she could answer, a crash from the twins' room sent them both running. They found Olivia standing on a chair, trying to reach her princess crown from the top shelf, while Oliver watched with wide eyes. Olivia rose. Sophia exclaimed, her heart racing. What were you thinking? Alexander quickly lifted Olivia down, his face stern but gentle. Princess, you know better than to climb on furniture. You could have been hurt. Olivia's lower lip trembled. But I wanted to show you my crown dance. Sophia and Alexander exchanged a look, years of separate parenting suddenly merging into a unified front. How about this? Alexander suggested, kneeling to Olivia's level. If you promise never to climb on furniture again, we can all watch your crown dance after dinner. Deal? Olivia's face lit up. Promise. Can we have spaghetti? Daddy makes it the best way. Sophia watched as Alexander's eyes filled with joy at the simple compliment. She realized that these moments, the everyday challenges, the small triumphs, the shared looks of understanding, were weaving them back together in ways she hadn't expected. Later that night, after the twins were asleep and the dishes were done, Sophia and Alexander stood at her apartment window, watching the snow fall. "The apartment," Sophia said quietly. "When would you move in?" Alexander turned to face her, hope written across his features. "The lease starts next month. Sophia, I know this is a big step, but I want to do this right. Being close but still giving you your space. It feels like the right move." Sophia nodded slowly, her mind racing with possibilities. "It would be good for the kids," she mused. "And maybe for us too." Alexander stepped closer, his hand finding hers. "Us?" he whispered, the word full of question and hope. Sophia looked up at him, seeing not just the man who had hurt her, but the father who had fought his way back, the man who was trying so hard to make things right. "Yes," she said softly. "Us. I'm not ready for everything yet, but I'm ready to try." Alexander's face broke into a smile that reminded her of why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't. Their kiss was gentle, tentative, filled with the weight of their past and the promise of their future. When they broke apart, Sophia rested her forehead against his. "We take this slow," she whispered. "For the kids. For us." Alexander nodded, holding her close. "We have all the time in the world," he promised. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms while snow fell silently outside, Sophia felt a peace she hadn't known in years. They weren't perfect, and their path forward wouldn't be easy, but they were finding their way back to each other, one small moment at a time. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and hope, as they began writing the next chapter of their story, not as separate individuals, but as a family healing and growing together. "Daddy, can we have sleepovers here?" Olivia asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Alexander glanced at Sophia, seeking her approval before answering. "If Mommy agrees, Princess, I'd love that." Sophia nodded slowly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Maybe we could start with weekend sleepovers." Later that evening, as they sat on Alexander's new couch surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, Sophia noticed Oliver had grown unusually quiet. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, pulling him onto her lap. Oliver fidgeted with his blue dragon, his small face serious. "If Daddy lives here now, does that mean you won't be sad anymore, Mommy?" The question caught Sophia off guard. She felt Alexander tense beside her. "What do you mean, love?" she asked gently. "Sometimes," Oliver continued, his voice barely a whisper, "I hear you crying at night. Is it because you miss Daddy?" Sophia felt tears prick at her eyes as Alexander reached over to take her hand. The gesture didn't go unnoticed by Olivia, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange. "Are you and Daddy going to get married?" Olivia blurted out, hope evident in her voice. The room fell silent, the weight of both children's questions hanging in the air. Sophia took a deep breath, looking at Alexander for support. "Listen, my loves," she began carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. Daddy and we're learning how to be a family again. It's like when you're learning to read. It takes time and patience." Alexander squeezed her hand, adding, "But what we both know for sure is that we love you both more than anything in the world, and we're going to keep working hard to make our family stronger every day." Olivia crawled into Alexander's lap, her face thoughtful. "Like when I practice my ballet steps? Exactly like that, Princess?" Alexander smiled, kissing the top of her head. As the evening wore on and the twins began to doze, Sophia found herself helping Alexander arrange the last of his belongings. They worked in comfortable silence until they reached a small box labeled Memories. Inside, Sophia found photographs she'd never seen before, pictures of the twins that Alexander had collected from social media and family friends over the years. There were newspaper clippings about her interior design achievements, and even a copy of the twins' birth announcement that her mother must have sent him. "You kept track of us?" she whispered, her fingers tracing a photo of the twins' first birthday. Alexander's voice was thick with emotion. "Every day. I was too much of a coward to come back, but I couldn't bear not knowing anything about you all. I kept everything, hoping that someday." He trailed off as Sophia discovered a small velvet box at the bottom of the container. Her heart stopped as she recognized it. The engagement ring he had given her 4 years ago, the one she had thrown at him the day he left. "Alexander," she breathed, her hands shaking. "I'm not proposing," he said quickly, taking her hands in his. "Not yet, but I kept it because deep down, I never stopped hoping we'd find our way back to each other, even when I didn't deserve that hope." Sophia looked into his eyes, seeing all the love, regret, and promise reflected there. Without thinking, she leaned forward and kissed him, pouring years of complex emotions into the gesture. When they broke apart, they heard a small giggle. Turning, they found Olivia and Oliver watching them from the hallway, matching grins on their faces. "Does this mean we can have sleepovers tonight?" Olivia asked hopefully. Sophia laughed, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Not tonight, sweetheart, but soon." As they gathered the twins to head back upstairs, Sophia felt a sense of peace settle over her. They were writing their story in their own way at their own pace. The ring would stay in its box for now, but its presence was a promise of possibilities to come. Standing in the doorway of Alexander's new apartment, their children between them, Sophia realized that sometimes the best love stories aren't about perfect beginnings or fairy tale endings. They're about the courage to try again, the strength to forgive, and the wisdom to build something new from the pieces of what was.